What's up, Squash Man? Unspoken Reviews back again with another video. And guys, today we're going to be doing a review of the recently released DCU's Supergirl. All right, guys. So before we get in further with the review, I want you guys to know there are going to be some spoilers involved with this review. Okay, I am going to talk some mild spoilers here and there. It's not exactly going to give away so much as to how things get resolved, but certain things like character motivations, certain way characters deal with situations are going to be spoiled here. Certain creature names might be spoiled here. So if you don't want any kind of spoilers, none at all, you just want to see the movie in its entirety first, I tell you right now, cut off this video, go see the movie if it's something you want to see. If you don't care and you just want to listen to what I thought about it because you're trying to decide if you want to go see it, stick around and let's get on with it. All right, guys. So we did realize that Supergirl was going to be a film that was released this year after the recently released Superman of 2025. Now, I want to let you guys know that Superman film did a great job of making someone who's not a fan of the character into a mildly interested fan of the character. I have never really been a big Superman fan. Just never cared for the guy. I'm a big Batman fan, though. And I'm pretty sure that in the DC camp of fans out there, there are two camps. There's the Batman fans and the Superman fans. Pick a side as you will. But I've always been a big Batman fan. I just could never understand Superman. I could never understand what makes him great. I mean, a guy who just has all these powers that can pretty much do anything and is just invulnerable. I just didn't like it. I liked Batman because he was just more human, in my opinion. Of course, he could do some pretty extraordinary things, but for all intents and purposes, he was just a man who just took himself to the pinnacle heights of what a human being can do, and he uses those abilities to fight crime. I just liked him better because I guess I relate to him more on a human level. But the Superman film of 2025 did a great job of making me feel the human essence of the character. Yeah, he's an alien who can do all these amazing things, but giving him very human-like problems and very human-like emotions really made me see him in a different light. I started to become a fan of just the way he picked himself up after finding out all that news about his family, the connection he has with Ma and Pa Kent, the connection he had with Lois. All of these things just made him very, very human. And I was just like, okay, I kind of like this guy now. Hey, I guess there was some positives that came out of that film. Now, we do realize towards the end of that movie and during the film, we get hints of Supergirl. Millie Alcock was supposed to play the character, and she does make a cameo at the very end after Superman had been taking care of Krypto, which was a part of the movie that I really didn't care for. I kind of really got annoyed with Krypto. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way, and I'm a guy who has a dog. So, Krypto being around in the film started to get really annoying for me, okay? I'm just being honest. But Millie Alcock, Supergirl, does make a cameo at the very end of the film, taking the dog back, and I guess she does leave Earth after that. So this film picks up right after that, as we see that she's been traveling throughout the galaxy, and she's kind of just in this really sunken place. She's been sad and depressed. As we know, Supergirl did recently just come from Krypton. You see, her story is a little different from Superman, as Kal does not remember Krypton. He basically came to Earth as a baby, so Earth is the only home he's ever known. Mom and Pa Kent are the only parents he's ever known outside of the hologram of both Laura and Jor-El. Those are the only pieces of evidence he has of Krypton. Other than that, Earth has been his only home. Unlike Kara, who, while she was raised in the remnants of Argo City, still is really close to the history of Krypton, right? She was in Argo City as the planet had been destroyed, and she remembers almost everything about it as much as can be remembered. So the history, the city, the people, all of these things are very close to her, and she has not been on Earth long enough. To her, it feels like cutting off a limb, right? Leaving behind one world and trying hard to embrace the other. From what we got from the introductions and the trailers to the movies, she's not really doing so well with that. As we see, she's kind of drunk all the time. She's near a red sun, which dulls their powers. And for her, this gives her the opportunity to be drunk and hopefully to forget. She seems to have a really hard time finding a world where she belongs at. And it seems like home is wherever Krypto is, as she says. And it just seems like she's just having a really hard time letting go of the past and embracing some type of future on Earth, even though Clark is there and that's the closest family she has, the closest connection she has to Krypton that's alive. She just doesn't feel like that's home. And that is what really made me connect with the character in the trailers. It really made me kind of want to see this film because it felt like a character coming out of grief and trying to attach herself to something as much as she could, but also feeling the pain of everything that was left behind. And I really liked that. It got me really interested in this movie. So I went to go see the movie yesterday, and I got to be honest, guys, it did not do much for me. I will not sit here and say that it's horrible. But if you're trying to get someone invested in the DCU, this was not the movie to do it. I got to be honest. The Superman film did a great job of bringing you in, and I felt like this movie was supposed to keep you in. And it didn't do that. It didn't keep me invested. It kind of made it feel like I could skip this movie and just watch Superman and then go on to the next movie after the Supergirl movie. This movie was supposed to kind of keep me invested. And if I got all these movies on collection, or if they were up on HBO Max, I would watch Superman, skip that one, and then go on to the next property. Because to me, it didn't feel like it did anything that was worthy of, okay, what's going to happen next? Now, not all movies need to do that. Okay, we're going to get back into that because I do feel like some stories don't all have to be end of the world or end of the universe stakes. Sometimes the more personal stakes do work, but they have to work the right way. Okay, so I'll start off with some things I like, and then I'll compare it to things that I didn't like. Okay, we'll do it that way. Okay, so first thing I gotta say, we'll give that's a pro that I like. There was a good use of Supergirl's powers. All right, I like the way the flight looked pretty good. You know, the heat vision looked pretty good. Seeing her try to fight without her powers was really interesting. As you see, the Kryptonians are really bad fighters. Like they're not as strong without their powers, and it goes to show a certain level of dependency that they have on them, right? They're so used to having their abilities that trying to fight without them is really interesting. You know, it makes it interesting to see them lose, to see them get beat, but it also goes to show how much they depend on them, right? Kara starts off in a pretty good fight scene in the beginning of the film, right? It seems like she has a somewhat decent control, and she can take hits and still somewhat survive them. And then you can kind of tell some of her Kryptonian cells are still working despite being near a red sun. But without her powers, you can see she just doesn't really have that kind of skill to survive in a fight, and how much she kind of depends on them. You can also kind of see the difference in tone from what she has with Clark, right? With Clark, he's been on Earth since he was a baby. So since the time he arrived on Earth, he's been under a yellow sun. So he absorbed all those cells from the time he landed on Earth. And now being in his 30s, he's a much more stronger Kryptonian than Kara, who only really started to get her powers after she landed on Earth. Now, some of the fight scenes worked, some of them didn't. There is one fight scene that does happen in a bar that's a one shot that was actually pretty good. I liked it. She didn't have too much of her powers. She did have enough of them where she could make good combat, but she was not the strongest one in the room, which made it a lot more interesting in my opinion. It kind of put her a little bit on the evening field with the people in the bar. So when she's fighting them, she's getting hit, right? She's taking a couple hits. Even though she's kind of getting back up from them, it takes her a little while to heal up from them. She has to kind of really gain her composure again and start fighting. And I was like, okay, cool. That works as a scene. All right. Now, when she finally gets her powers at the very end of the film and she's at top shape, right after she gets out of the green sun, I liked the use of her powers. I love to see the flights. I love to see how strong she is, throwing things around, using the heat vision. She's much more of a different fighter than Clark. You can tell she kind of has a little bit of Wonder Woman vibes when she's fighting, like from the Wonder Woman movie we got with Gal Gadot. Like that's almost how she was fighting, right? And the one thing I will say about Kara, she doesn't hold back like Clark. Clark can hold back because he doesn't want to kill anyone. Kara doesn't have that rule, and that makes her much more of a fierce fighter, in my opinion. It lets her hit harder. It lets her kill people. And I was like, okay, cool. I like that. I like that little bit more edge because it takes away that restraint that you see with Clark. And it kind of makes her character a little bit more interesting and what we can expect from her moving forward. I will talk about the flashbacks next because the flashbacks were some pivotal parts of the film where you felt like these emotional connections between Kara, her past, and what she's trying to embrace in the future. And as she's going through the story, I kind of really felt the emotional impact, right? Her growing up in Argo City as a young, innocent kid, her connection with her parents. And then when her parents get sick from the kryptonite radiation poisoning, you really feel bad for her. You can feel the fact that she's losing everything that she has, right? And when her father starts to create the pod to help her get to Earth, you can understand why she doesn't want to leave, right? And you really understand where Zor-El is coming from, right? Zor-El is his daughter, and he feels like it is his responsibility to save her. And that's the most important thing in his life right now. He even says that you are my life. So is your mother. You're your mother's life. And I thought that was so cool to see as a father from his perspective, seeing that he doing everything he can, even though he has no hope and his wife has no hope. He's going to make sure Kara has hope the best way he can possible. And I like how he finds some of Jor-El's plans and manages to make an escape pod. I also like seeing the destruction of Krypton, right? We didn't get to see that in the Superman film. We didn't get to see that because, like I said, this is from a different perspective, right? We do see like a quick scene of Cal's ship going off into space and heading to Earth. But that's about it. And we get to see the destruction of the planet and see the dome that Zor-El creates to kind of save Argo City and seeing it being saved from the destruction of Krypton. Now, here's the deal. I felt the emotional weight of that. But I felt like these flashbacks should have happened in different points of the movie. Maybe I might have been wrong in this, but the destruction of Krypton felt like it was something that should have happened in the very beginning of the film, right? And then we can kind of see her connection with Crypto after Crypto was injured, after he gets shot with the poison dart. And then we could see, it does happen later on in the film, but seeing the part where she's kind of catering to her mother as she's sick, watching her father get sick, that happened in the right point. I just kind of felt like the destruction of Krypton should have happened earlier in the film. All right, now I'm going to cover a couple characters. Now, for Kara, her character evolution is not that bad. I did like her character's evolution in the film. I kind of felt like her character was getting the most that she needed to get. I kind of felt Kara's evolution where she was as she lost her parents and seeing the type of resentment and anger and sadness that she was dealing with, missing Krypton, missing her home, missing all the people she had. I understood while she was traveling the galaxy, just trying to find what felt like home, not wanting to go back to Earth. I also liked Superman constantly reaching out to her, trying to say, hey, look, this can be home. You can come here and find your footing. And it really just goes to show how much Clark still cares about her. Even though they may be somewhat strangers in a sense, Clark still cares. And, this is who Clark is. He's always been like this. But this is the closest person living that he has to family, to real family. And to see him pushing so hard to just try to encourage her, hey, come on back around. Earth can be your home if you let it. And I like he still kind of has that big brother mentality with Kara, right? He doesn't want to give up on her. We all know that Clark doesn't give up on anybody. But it was just pretty cool seeing that scene. But also seeing her just kind of broken and not caring about anything and just trying her best to push everything away was very emotional for her character. And as she goes through the story and starts to realize that she wants to make a difference the right way, as her mother has always told her, just be a good person, just do good. I like how she says you don't have to let people walk all over you. You don't have to be so kind, but just be good when you can. And honestly, that was the best type of advice a parent could give a child, especially a daughter or like a child in general. Like, be a good person, but don't let everyone walk all over you. Don't let people just get away with whatever, but be a good person. I thought that was pretty good for her mother to give her that advice. That was real solid advice for a parent to give in her last few moments of life. I thought that was pretty cool for her character. I did like seeing her go through the connection, like I said, with Argo City. The hard part of watching her parents die, watching all her people die, then having to leave that earth behind, leave that place behind. Because she says that Argo City to her was no different from a city or a planet. She saw it as just one big world. And to see the connection being so taken away from her, the way she had to watch all the people in Argo City dying, and there was nothing she could do except leave, is so heartbreaking. And I love the one shot of her sitting in the pod and she's looking at her father, and that's the last thing she sees as everything just pulls away and disappears. I was just like, man, that is so heartbreaking, man. But I just loved seeing some of the things her character went through. I do felt like I wish I could have got more of that grief feeling that she feels from losing Argo City, but it didn't really feel that way. Now we come to a character that I was not a fan of, okay? Ruthie was a character that I just did not like in this movie, okay? When we first get introduced to Ruthie, she is a character who is the daughter of these blacksmiths. Her father is a blacksmith and he makes swords and he's very talented at it. And I began to understand that in the beginning of the film as her parents are about to meet up with this villain named Krem. And we're going to get to Krem in a minute. When her parents are killed, I I I didn't understand. Like I understood what she was going through, but her character, the emotional connection of how her family dies, I definitely understood that. The problem with it is that Ruthie began to get very annoying every single time she got on screen. Like every single time she showed up to a place, she would announce, "I'm Ruthie of the so and so clan, and I've come with one mission of so and so to get revenge on Krem of the Yellow Hills." And you guys know how, like in some movies, a character will constantly repeat something. After a while, it could become almost funny or a meme. This did not happen in this movie. It started to get really annoying. Now, whether or not that's the fault on the actress or the writing, I can't tell you. But every single time she did this, I found myself less connected to what she was trying to do. So when she would show up at the bar and she would say, "My name's Ruthie of the so and so clan, and the so and so," that's what it started to sound like after a while. And the actress, like I said, if it's in the writing and it's the way she was told to do it, understandable. Because for all intents and purposes, this is a young kid, right? She's still just a child. She's maybe about 13, 14, and she just has this idea of revenge. And I felt like I should have been able to connect with that a little bit more. Like I could have felt this no nonsense from her, but I didn't feel that. It just felt like I was listening to a child complain that they weren't able to play with other kids. There were just times where I felt like I should have been able to connect with Ruthie as a character, and I just didn't feel it. Even when she had genuine fight scenes between her and another character, there was no way that she should have been able to be strong enough to do the things that she was doing. There's one scene where she's in the cell and she kind of uses these cuffs to choke out one of the villains. And I kind of just was like, there's absolutely no way that this is happening right now. Now, there would be certain things that she could do, such as like the stealthy escapes, like when she would disappear into grates or whatever. Totally believe that, right? Being so small like that and having such an agile body like that, being able to disappear here and there, that worked. But her character, like I said, I just didn't like her. I just didn't feel anything. Every time I felt like this emotional weight was supposed to be there for her character, it just wasn't there for me. And no matter how much I tried to really like her, every time she would speak that title, it just made it hard for me to connect with her. There's a particular point in the film where she's mad at Kara for something that she does. And the way the actress speaks, you don't feel the emotion behind that anger, right? She tries to kill Krem and Kara intervenes. And when she's screaming at Kara, the way she's speaking sounds like a fish out of water, almost like she's never spoken like that or raised her voice to that volume. Maybe I'm alone in that, but I was just kind of like, it doesn't feel like she's really mad. She just feels frustrated, like she took something that she was about to eat some food or whatever, and she took something from her. Like it just didn't feel that angry to me. I don't know, maybe I'm alone in that, but that's kind of how I felt when I watched that particular scene. All right, so I'm going to move on to Krem here. Krem is a villain in the film, as his title is Krem of the Yellow Hills. And when Krem shows up in the film, I did not really connect with this guy as a villain. He felt more like villain of the week, in my opinion. When Krem shows up, his initial appearance in the film, he comes to kill Ruthie's parents. Well, to get weaponry from Ruthie's parents. Now, I was hoping to understand why Krem wanted the weapons, right? When Krem shows up, he just wants weaponry that Ruthie's father creates. And I was hoping to understand what is so significant about these weapons that Krem would show up and push for them. Now, there's no point in the film where the weapons that Ruthie's talking about, I understand that they're high quality, they're sharp, they're dangerous, but what is it about these weapons that are so amazing that Krem needs them? I couldn't tell you because the film doesn't care about that. Krem is just a kind of goofy villain that just makes noises every once in a while and dances and acts kind of insane. And I guess they were kind of thinking that was going to work for this character. It didn't work. I wanted to really connect with Krem the same way I connected with someone like Thanos or Killmonger. And I felt like this film should have did a better job of that. I even understand Lex Luthor, right? Lex is a guy who wants to have control over power. He doesn't like to feel powerless. So what does he do? He tries to control those with power and defeat them the best way he knows how so he can be the strongest man. It's not hard to figure out. He just has an issue with power. With Krem, I felt like I should have been able to feel that with this character. I didn't feel it. I wanted to understand why Krem was pushing for these weapons and why he needed them. Why did he feel need to be scared for this split second? Because there's a moment where Ruthie's brother, I don't know if the parents didn't explain this to Ruthie and her brother before doing all these things, but her brother jumps out, scares her to try to like scare her or whatever, and Krem just immediately kills him. I was like, well, damn, dude. Like, I mean, like you didn't wait a minute before you threw that axe. I mean, you just killed him. I mean, like it was just, it felt like the character should have froze up for a minute or at least waited for an instance. And then maybe he killed him or like something. It just felt like you see something and then you snap and kill it. Like, I just was like, that was weird. And I understood why her parents jumped to try to kill Krem for what he did and her father destroying Krem's ship. All those things understandable. I just didn't understand why Krem needed those weapons. And that's not something that's ever talked about between Krem and Ruthie, right? There's a particular scene where Krem comes to visit Ruthie in the cell right before she escapes. And I was expecting Krem to say, hey, do you know why I needed those weapons? And he would explain that there was a threat bigger than him that was coming to destroy him and his people. And he needed something sharp and dangerous to protect him and his men. That would have been very easy. It would have laid the seeds for other threats out there in the galaxy, and it would have made Krem a little bit more sympathetic. It didn't do that. It didn't make me understand him. He just kind of taunts Ruthie for killing her family, and I was like, okay. Like, I just would have liked it better if Krem, because the way that they talk about the Brigands in this film, as if they're the most dangerous race, like everybody knows their names. This Galarian race that is like these junkyard people that go around stealing everybody's items or whatever, they're afraid of them. So many people are afraid of the Brigands, and I wanted to feel the Brigands have something to be afraid of, which is why they need these weapons, because they talk about the Brigands like they're so dangerous. What is so significant about the weapons that Ruthie's father was making that Krem needed them? And I felt like the film should have talked about that to make you understand why Krem was doing what he was doing. This way, you can see why Krem is trying to protect his people, right? He's not only their leader, he's their protector. And I would have liked it better if we could understand why Krem wanted the weapons, so that way we could kind of understood what he was trying to do. I mean, could he probably died at the end of the film? Yeah, possibly. But at least you would have understood that there was something out there bigger than him that he was afraid of, right? You would understand why he's going to the lengths that he's going to, right? Now, this is another thing with the film I didn't like, because a lot of people complain about the wokeness in this film. It is a little woke, but not in the manner to me that bothered me the way you think. But what bothered me here was in this film was the human trafficking aspect. Okay, so for the Brigands, for Krem and his men, they do this thing where they take young girls away from their parents to breed and create more males for their all-male race. That's another thing. As soon as I say all-male race in this film, I was kind of just like, oh, no, man, come on, let's not do this. Come on, James Gunn, don't do this. And it turned into the Save Women film, right? It went into this women are being trafficked. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm ever okay with anyone being human trafficked at all. But it just felt like this didn't need that. It didn't need to create this little part to make you feel like I am women, hear me roar part. It didn't need that. It didn't need that to happen. If it was something where they were stealing a bunch of different children, like both male and female, and trying to train the males up to become brigands, right? Like, I would have understood that. Then you could have both genders. Like, they could want to breed with the females, but also want to train the males. I'd have been like, okay, fine. Now it would take away that kind of wokeness aspect, right? You would have been like, okay, now you understand why he wants both sets of genders. It didn't do that. It was all about the females are being trafficked and being used for this. Now we got to save the girls. Now, I should have felt something for this, but there's one particular scene in the film that destroys that. There is a scene where after Kara and Ruthie find this bar to hide in after they meet Lobo, who we're going to get into that character in a little bit, they hold up in this bar with this family who decides to help them after she defeats all these people in the bar. pretty okay fight scene. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was just kind of like an off-brand fight scene where you can't really see anything in the background and you're just focused on one character. So after they're in the house, Kara goes down there and, to talk to them. They're kind of kind and offer her something to drink, which of course turns out to be poison. But because Kara's Kryptonian, the poison doesn't paralyze her the way they're expecting. And she's able to work off the effects using some milk. So they have taken their daughter, and the only way for them to get their daughter back is if they give them two females, which even after they do get the daughter back, of course, we do know that Kara and them escape, which makes Krem go back on his word and goes to kill their daughter. But he doesn't only just kill the daughter, he kills both the parents too after they try to save her life. And I felt like I should have felt any emotional weight to this, but because this wokeness part came up, I just kind of was like, okay, am I supposed to feel something? First off, these two people were very kind of weird when you meet them. And then when they betray Kara, you don't like them anymore. So when they get killed, you're just kind of like, okay, now I don't really care for them because they already turned out to be two assholes. So, I mean, you understood why they did what they did, but I just should have felt their death as a pinnacle moment for Kara to go, this isn't right. And I didn't feel that. Right. If they were being innocent and they were just doing what they could to protect their daughter, and then Krem came to take her, then I would have been like, okay, cool. Now I understand why she's so angry. So when she does that scene where she flies off in space and screams, I was like, okay, cool. I understand her pain in this moment. Right. She lost her family. Now she sees other families dying. I was like, okay, cool. I can understand that now. But this scene just didn't do that for me. OK, I just didn't understand that part. Now I'm going to talk about Crypto next. For Crypto, he was mostly just the MacGuffin of this film. He was just mostly the MacGuffin. He didn't have really any meaning in the film. I didn't really care for Crypto as much as you guys thought I did. I already didn't like the character, which I know some people are dog lovers. Like I said, I'm a dog lover. I have a dog. But you have to understand, I just should have been able to feel that from Crypto. And Crypto just, from the last Superman film, just kind of acted annoying to me. He just kind of felt like an annoying character somewhere that was constantly bugging everybody. That's what it felt like Crypto was for me in that movie. So when he gets shot with the poison dart, I just kind of was like, oh man, this is so sad. But this is the only thing that gets Kara on board. And she's constantly reminding Ruthie of that's what she's there for, right? That's the one thing that I do like, is that she doesn't deviate from that. She's constantly checking her watch. She's constantly keeping up with time, paying attention to the fact that she couldn't save Crypto. So she stays in line with that being her motivation. I just kind of felt like Crypto just, for me, was just kind of there. Like I felt like this being the ultimate motivation for the character kind of sucked. I would have liked it if she just kind of understood what Ruthie was going through and then wanting to get involved. Fine. Now, in some portions, that does kind of happen in the beginning of the film. It just didn't stick to it the way I expected it to. Okay, so next we'll talk about Lobo. Jason Momoa has been fan casting for Lobo for forever. As a matter of fact, way I understand it, is that was a character he wanted to play in Zack Snyder's DCU, and unfortunately he got Aquaman. So when he got Lobo here in the new DCU, he was genuinely excited. Now I gotta say, visually, he looks great. He looks great as Lobo. I can't lie to you. Perfect casting. The way he does that, yeah, like that just kind of fits his character. When he's acting wild and just making his usual jokes all the time, and his casual speaking and casual disregard for things that are supposed to be important to him or important to somebody else, completely perfect. He does a great job with the character. Just the small things that Lobo usually does, because that's how Lobo is. If you watch any kind of anime or Young Justice, Justice League, or, that's kind of how Lobo is. He kind of is a shoulder shrug. He's a bounty hunter. That's what he does. He just kills things and he gets money, and that's all he cares about. He don't care about nothing else. All right. That's just what Lobo is. But he kind of felt a little hammy at times, right? He just kind of felt like he was there to just kind of scream, and I just kind of had a hard time liking him too. He just kind of felt like the comic relief that made you laugh occasionally when you needed it. And it wasn't horrible. I just kind of felt like I could use a little bit more, but I don't think he was quite necessary in this film. Maybe not to the extent that he was. Maybe in the beginning where he kind of shows himself and has like that fight scene when they're still in that town or whatever, that would have been a pretty good fight scene for him, and then him just leave after that. That's not what happened. He gets up getting kidnapped. Now, his whole thing of being there was only going after one of the brigands, and it was not Krem, it was another one. And I just felt like that was his only reason for being there. I kind of would have understood it a little bit more if he was after Krem, because I would have worked a little bit more. Like he would have wanted to just kill Krem and they would probably need Krem alive for something, that would have worked better. Like if Krem didn't have that antidote around his neck and he had it hidden somewhere and they needed to get to Krem to defeat him, to get the antidote from him, and Lobo just wanted him dead. And, you know, you kind of create this kind of foil between Kara trying to save, you know, Crypto and Lobo just trying to get paid. That would have been a pretty good matchup for the characters, right? She's just trying to save her dog, but Lobo's like, hey, I don't care about that. I'm just trying to get paid. That would have been a better story for, you know, not only for Krem, but for Lobo as well. Also, because they says that a whole bunch of people wanted one of those brigands dead. That would have been a pretty good story for Krem, as in who did Krem piss off? Who wants him dead? And why would they send Lobo instead of them just doing it themselves? And is that the reason for Krem needing the weapons? Like I said, maybe Krem needed the weapons because they could kill Lobo. That would have been a perfect way to describe how powerful these weapons are, right? Like these weapons should have been more bigger than what they were. And if they were able to take out Lobo, then you can understand why Krem wanted them. But Jason Momoa did a great job. Can't complain about it. The man always does the same thing he always does in almost every movie. Just shows a lot of charisma and does a lot of screaming, but does some badassery here and there. And it worked out. I don't have a problem with it. So a couple little other small positives. I like the fact that the other alien races, that we get to understand how space works, right? Understand that there are like space transports that go from planet to planet when they need to pick people up. I like that we got to see different alien races like the Scalarian pirates. Seeing that little alien who was helping the bus driver, that was pretty cool as well. Seeing the different types of creatures is pretty cool. As we know, this universe has already been flowing way before Superman. So understanding there are other aliens out there, it worked for what it needed to. And I like seeing the different types of creatures out there, how some of them live, how some of them eat, how they survive, how they thrive. That was pretty cool to see. I really liked that. I also like the idea of, you know, the hierarchy and how they work, how they know which ones are more dangerous, how like even Ruthie's family is well known, right? Because they're blacksmiths. So they create some amazing weapons for some people out there. So they're really well known. When Ruthie actually announces her title, people actually turn around. They're actually kind of interested in what she's about to say until she mentions Krem. And then everybody's like, ah, never mind. So that just kind of shows a level of hierarchy of who's the most dangerous one in the galaxy. And I was like, okay, I kind of like that. The thing I didn't like about the planets, though, we don't really feel the weight of the planets, right? Like when they announce the planets, they talk about them like they're just states, right? I guess we're supposed to feel how amazing these planets are or how vast or how amazing they are, but we just don't get that. And I get it. Like this universe has been lived in. So when people mention these planets, people will just kind of shoulder shrug because they know where that planet is. So it's not a big deal to them. But the planet that they were taking Takara on felt like a planet that was the only planet that had some significance. So when she goes to the planet that has both the yellow and green sun, you kind of felt like this was a planet that should have been more talked about, but I guess it was supposed to be a surprise for her character. She wasn't supposed to know about it. I just kind of felt like the planet should have been something that was more talked about. Now, the suits in this film. Kara's Supergirl suit looks perfect. It looks great. The suit looks awesome. The suit looks great. It has the skirt. It has the boots. It has the Supergirl emblem, the Superman emblem for the House of L. The cape looks good. The heat vision looks good. Everything that happens with the suit, that's entailed with the suit and what she does with the suit, perfect. I can't complain about the suit. Same thing with Lobo's suit. Looks perfect. Exactly the way I would expect Lobo to look. Kind of like the cutoff jacket, the vest, the pants, the bike. Everything looks perfect for the character. So I couldn't complain about the displays of suits and outfits and any of their tech or the way they use their abilities. Outside of that, guys, I will say this film is just not my cup of tea. Like I said, if this was a film that was in a list of movies in a collection, I would skip over it unless I wanted to see something or hear something that I might have missed. No post-credit scene at the very end of it, so you're not missing anything. As we know, Supergirl is supposed to make a very huge appearance in Man of Tomorrow, the Superman sequel. But I'm kind of shoulder shrugging. They're going to have to do a lot more with Millie Alcock's Kara to really make me want to see her. They're going to have to do a lot more. They're going to have to do a lot more to get me to understand her, to connect with her. When they mention Brainiac, I need to feel her understand who Brainiac is, because if Clark doesn't know and he has no Kryptonian records, she's got to be the one to know. And I'm kind of hoping the film picks up on that. Outside of that, guys, it's not a movie that you really need to see. It's not a huge film. It's not something that will change the way you feel. It's not a real good step forward for the DCU. Like I said, it's more of a shoulder shrug for me. But if you guys want to see it just to kind of get your own idea of what you think about it, I would highly suggest you go see it yourself. Just because I was not a big fan of it doesn't mean that you won't be. So check it out if you want to. If you don't want to, if you do want to go see it, I would highly suggest you go see it in the early morning hours where movie theaters don't charge you as much to see it in the evening hours. All right, guys, I've been Unspoken Reviews, and I will catch you guys in the next one.